Hello everyone, Artist Charles Wolf here. Let's get to some painting. I'm very excited to paint for you a landscape painting today. It's been a little while since I've painted a landscape for you all, and my favorite part of any landscape painting is the sky. Particularly, I like the clouds. I love clouds. I'm always obsessed by looking up at them when I'm out and about during the day. I have lots of really great clouds here in beautiful Raleigh, North Carolina. And we get the nice billowy cumulus clouds, some high cirrus clouds, among others. So today I thought that it would be awesome to paint a sunset. And actually this is a very recent sunset that happened within the last month. I was driving to a friend's house and was going to go play some board games with them, and I saw this amazing sunset outside my window. At the time I was very disappointed because I wasn't able to stop and to take a photograph of it. But another friend of mine did happen to capture the sunset with their camera, and they were nice enough to allow me to borrow the photograph and to paint a painting from it. So if you're ever using someone else's photographs for painting, do be sure that you have permission from them first. I was able to get permission, and I was so glad that they let me use their amazing photo of this spectacular pastel sunset, and I'm going to get to paint it for you all right now. First step to painting any landscape for me is to start with the blocking, and to block in a painting is pretty easy. You're going to use three colors, your three primaries. Today I have a palette set out here for you with some basic colors, and the colors are from left to right. I have some cadmium yellow light, some titanium white, some Naphthol Crimson, Cobalt Blue, a little more titanium white, and then I'll be using some water as a blender just to get the paint to run more thinly off my brush and to cover more area quickly. We don't need a thick layer of paint when we're blocking in our basic shapes of the sky. We just need the paint to kind of give a nice shadowed background to paint over. This technique, I think, is sort of a great way of figuring out your composition ahead of time by using the basic colors, red, yellow, blue. And then you can, once you've figured out your shapes, you can go ahead and layer another layer of acrylic paint over it and get the colors to be the correct colors. One reason why I'm using so much yellow in this sky is because there was a yellow haze sort of over the entire photograph, and that frequently happens when you have a bluish sky, mostly clear sky. At sunset you get kind of a yellowish green color underpinning to it, so you can kind of see there's a yellow underneath, and then the blue, the light blue, sky blue is on top of it, and that's how we're going to recreate that very interesting color. We don't want green and blue together, because if you mix your green and blue together, when they're both wet, you're going to get like a very bold green. We don't want that. So we're going to paint a yellow, we're going to dry it off first, and then after it's dry, paint the blue over the yellow, and that will look a lot more realistic and closer to the actual sunset. So that's a little trick for you and a little tip. Here you can see I'm bringing in some of the red, and there is a nice crimson streak right in the center of this amazing, spectacular sunset. Some really beautiful pinks and purples, and I'm very excited, like I said, to paint this particular sunset with you. This painting is going to be entirely the sky. I'm going to have a line of trees at the bottom, very simple composition, but it really focuses on making these clouds be super impactful, and I'm just so excited to share with you this amazing piece. Not that I'm making it giving full justice to the actual photograph, which was stunning, but I'm going to do my very best to recapture sort of the essence of the feeling of when I looked out my car window driving that one night and saw this spectacular sunset happening. And hopefully when you see it, you'll get a sense of the awe that I had when I was looking at that sunset. Here I'm blocking in my higher clouds with some of the blue, and you can see the very bottom layer of that blue is going to be where the trees are going to go, and then here is a very thick low hanging cloud line blocking that out as well. Don't worry about making these lines perfect. We can always adjust things for the second layer. We're just trying to get the basic shapes more or less where they need to go. trying to get the composition laid out. You can do this from your own head. You don't actually have to start with an actual photograph like I am today. Lots of times I don't. I paint lots of paintings just from my head. Sometimes it's helpful to have some reference photos while you're painting. Don't get too tied to that photo. It doesn't have to be photorealistic. That's not an obligation on your part. Just use it to get the sort of the basic shape. Where are the trees? Where is the sky? Where are the clouds? Get that kind of basic composition figured out first. And then you can go and you can use your imagination and adjust things to make it more interesting. That's what art is. You're taking yourself and injecting it into what you're seeing. So even if you have 20 artists in a room, they're all painting the same thing, you'll get 20 different paintings. It doesn't matter if they're using the same colors. You'll still not look exactly alike. No one painting will be exactly the same. And that's what's really amazing about painting in general, is that it doesn't matter. It doesn't always have to be exact. It can just be more loose and more fun. And that's how I like to approach things. But I am more of an impressionist, so I don't like to get bogged down with details. Ugh, kill me now. Okay, putting in a few more of these blues and some more of the yellow up here in the sky. Again, that cadmium yellow light. Nice flat wash brush there, just pure cadmium yellow. Again, you can add a little bit of water to make it run better if you need to. Don't overdo it, but a little water will help. Just make it flow. Need some more yellow down here at the bottom. Gonna establish this glowing sun, which is right there on the bottom right. Just hidden behind the trees, I believe. Again, this looks nothing like the actual sunset. There's gonna be a lot of blue on this painting. It's mostly blue sky, and it looks a little weird at first, but bear with me. It's gonna look amazing in a minute once we layer that blue over the yellow. Once it's all dry, I'm gonna grab a hairdryer in just a second, dry it all off, and it's gonna look really cool. Okay, now that I've blocked in my entire canvas with the basic shapes of the composition, I'm going to continue here with my blow dryer, and I'm going to dry off the entire canvas very thoroughly, and once it's all dry, we'll move on. Grabbing my Filbert brush, nice rounded edge to it, I'm going to take the Cobalt Blue and a little bit of the titanium white, mixing more and more white as I go, to get a nice sky blue color. More white, I think, than the blue. And once I get it to the right level, I'm going to start at the very top of the canvas and work down. I usually start from the top to the bottom. We're going to fill this in. And if we cover up a little bit of what's underneath, that's okay. We're going to fill in all of the yellow with the sky blue color. Now it's a little pale at the moment. I'm going to darken it up by adding some more blue to that top section. But for now, we just need to get the basic coat on. And I'm going to do lots of quick little brush strokes, kind of varying the intensity of the brush strokes. And I'm going to allow some of that yellow to poke through, not covering it totally. Kind of be like a slight yellowish cast underneath the layers of the blue, which is why I'm doing so many brush strokes in a row. I'm not looking for thick coverage. We want enough coverage so that it reads blue, but if you look at it closely, you can see there's a little bit of the yellow still happening underneath. It shouldn't look green either. It should look like a yellow cast under the blue, which is the effect that I think we're going to get because we did dry off the bottom layer. Here we go, just filling in this top right corner. Quick brush strokes. Trying to keep my hand fairly relaxed while I'm doing this. If you tighten up, you'll get a cramp. Just relax and allow the bristles to work for you. Don't try to force it. A little more at the top. You can see I've added more blue to my mix there. Filling this in. Almost covering up those bits of red. We'll come back to those later on in the piece and bring in some nice coral pink over those spots for some high light clouds. Filling in between the darker high clouds that I have here. Adding a little more blue to my mix. I want the top to be darker. It should be a nice gradient. The darkest at the top can be becoming lighter right above that line of the thicker lower clouds. So we're going to go from a darker sky blue to almost a milky white, mostly white sky blue, right above that band of blue that I have down in about 2/3 down the canvas. And that band of blue is going to become purple in the next step when I start to put in my clouds. Acrylic painting is all about layering. The key approach to this is to work in layers and to, over time, better define each of the sections. You always want to start the biggest section first and kind of work your way inwards. My recommendation is block everything in, start to make the colors being pushed closer to the right colors in the way you want it to appear. Get that figured out first before you get bogged down in tiny little brush strokes. I try to use fairly large brushes, as large as I can. This is a 12 by 12 inch canvas that I'm working on today, by the way, and so I'm using appropriately large brushes. If I'm working on a massive canvas, I might use bigger brushes. If I'm working on a smaller canvas, then I can use smaller brushes. But the rule of thumb is try to block in the larger areas first with your larger brushes, then at the end, you can grab out your little detail smaller brushes. Don't get caught up in the habit of using the tiniest brush for the biggest job. That doesn't make sense. Use a bigger brush whenever you can. You'll get a better effect. Also saves you from taking forever. And I like to move quickly. I don't like to be stuck in any one section. You'll see me bouncing around a little bit as I paint. I'm a very impatient sort of fellow. I have to keep moving or I'll lose the flow and that's the idea of it. If it takes me more than a couple hours to paint a painting, I'm probably not going to finish that painting, honestly. I want to move fast. This is more like jazz than classical, if that makes sense. Quick, on your toes, improvisatory. Let's move, and we can worry about the details later on. And you can always take breaks, so if you're painting along and you feel like you're getting tired, then take a break. It's acrylic paint, you can come back to it at a later time. Not to put more paint out, maybe waste a little paint doing that, but that's okay. Just put out small amounts and build up to what you need. I always put too much paint on my palette, if I'm being honest. What can you do? A little more blue at the top. I want this to be more intense. Okay, let's work on filling in the sky completely here, covering up the last of this yellow in the upper portion. It's looking a lot more like an actual sunset now. Like I said, that blue is very important to the photograph and to the composition overall. Much more realistic, but having the yellow underneath gives it a really glowing feel and a really nice warmth that you wouldn't have if you had painted the blue directly on a white canvas. That would be very cold. And there's a nice heat that occurs when you paint over a nice warm yellow layer like we have today. And if you keep the brushwork really active, some of the yellow is going to pop through and just makes the entire sky more active and much more detailed looking without really that much more effort. It's a great trick. It's a great technique. I highly recommend this approach and this method to painting landscapes. It really is effective and adds a great amount of richness to your colors without that much more effort. Just basic shapes, block them in, and away you go. And you can always change things. It's not like you're bound to your basic blocking in. You can always adjust things, and I definitely do as I go along in this painting. Acrylic painting is very forgiving. If you make a mistake, you can just adjust things, or you can grab a hairdryer, dry it off, paint right over it. Not a big deal. Okay, back to my cadmium yellow light, some white, and a bit of the Naphthol Crimson. I'm going to make a nice coral color here. Lots of white. And I'm going to start to take this very pale coral color right over here on this right hand side, connecting up into the sky and bringing that over and across the top layer. Lots of white there, a little bit of the yellow and the red, just a touch of each, very littlest amount. And we're going to just drag that over. Not a lot of paint on my brush, create a nice warmer impression here at the bottom. It's a very light layer. Don't put it on too thick or too heavy. Keep it relaxed. Okay, a touch more of the yellow into my mix. I'm going to bring that in here as well. To get these clouds to look interesting and to look believable, we're going to need a lot of layers. So hold on to your hats. It's going to take us a little bit, but we'll get there. Okay, we're going to mix some of the Cobalt Blue, the Naphthol Crimson, and the Titanium White together. It's going to give us a nice deep purple color. If you add more white, it'll be more of a light lavender. If you add more of the blue and the red, you'll get a deeper, darker purple. More blue will be deeper, and more red will give it more of a crimson shimmer. Once you get the paint to the right consistency, I added more blue for this first pass. I'm going to bring in more of the red as we go along. I'm just going to take the corner of my brush there, basically tapping in over the darker blue I already have on the canvas, where this high cloud is already there in place. I'm really just tapping, allowing the bristles to do all the work for me. Going to start to block in some of the lower clouds now, still using that deep bluish purple mix. Again, just tapping, because I've already marked them out with my under painting. It's not too hard to know exactly where to put the brush strokes. All the thinking and planning has mostly been done. Here I'm just sort of filling in, almost like paint by numbers, where everything should go. Here I'm just tapping in a few higher little wispy clouds. It's a little bit thick, and in fact I go a little bit overboard, but we can go back and make adjustments. There should be some purple up in that left hand side, but I overdid it a little bit. Like I said though, acrylics is all about layers, so you gotta put the paint on and then make adjustments from there. It's better to just put the paint there and make adjustments than to freeze up and to think and worry about making it just right. You're not gonna get it just right. Don't worry about that. Just get the paint on the canvas and make adjustments as you go. You can refine things by adding more layers, by adjusting the colors, by moving things around. It's not hard to do that, especially since acrylic paint dries so very quickly. Just get the paint on the canvas first, then you can worry about making it look correct. A little more white, a little more blue. Just tapping it in over where I've marked out this deep rolling cloud. Gonna add some titanium white and some Naphthol Crimson to my blue mixture. More white, then more red. Looking for a more rich purple color Adding more red will give me that effect. Also a little bit lighter, we're going to start to put in some highlights. Loosely brushing it in. Right now it looks rather blobby, not very fluffy and cloud-like, but that comes with the layers. Lighten up a few spots up here at the top. As always, don't forget to paint the edges of your canvas as you're going along. Okay, taking my flat wash brush back into my sky color of titanium white plus the cobalt blue. We're gonna cover up some of this purple at the top here. Like I said, I went a little overboard, so we're just gonna cover it up right now. No big deal. Trying to find that perfect balance of having some lighter hints of clouds, very light. Bit more of the white to my mixture. Again, blending this out. A little more white. Adjusting these cloud shapes. They were a little bit too large. And that's what I mean by you can always make adjustments later. So I first put the paint on, however large it was going to be, and then I can go back with the sky color and sort of encroach where I had the purple, cover up a few spots, and adjust the shape so it's more accurate to what I'm seeing on the photograph that I have over off to the side. I'm going to bring in some more of the blue, just kind of peering through in a few spots, breaking up this cloud. It's not a solid mass of color, very fluffy, so we need to make sure that some of the blue is peeking through these layers. Again, blending here. Okay, back to my purple mixture. Naphthol Crimson, Cobalt Blue, Titanium White. Using my bright brush, has a very flat bristle. Just tapping in some lighter purple. Gonna make a few more adjustments to these clouds. Nice light lavender color I have now, and that's gonna be a great highlight for me on these lower clouds as well. You can see I'm just tapping and bringing it in. Don't cover up all the dark, so I want to cover up your entire section. You need the dark to see the light, you need the light to see the dark. So leave some of that darker color there, we want it there, but we can use this lighter color as highlights. Taking my flat wash brush here, I'm going to mix my cadmium yellow light with the titanium white, get a nice light creamy yellow color, and put that layer right above this lower blue, which is going to be the tree line eventually. Okay, I'm going to make a nice coral mixture with the cadmium yellow light, the Naphthol Crimson, and the titanium white. Using my bright brush, again I want a nice kind of orangey coral color, very rich color, not too much white, some, but we don't want to oversaturate it with the white. We want to keep that intensity with the red, a little more red there. And once I'm happy with the color, nice coral, we're going to apply it over top of this cloud layer as a very light highlight in a few moments. Here comes the coral, bringing that in underneath because the sun is setting below the tree line in the back, and you can see that it is going to be visible underneath these trees. Okay, I brought a little bit of the yellow in there. Here's some more of the coral. So the bottom of these clouds, pretend that they're these flat shapes, right? The bottom of the clouds is what's going to be lit from underneath by the setting sun. So we need the bottom part of these clouds to have the most color. That way it looks realistic. If you highlight the top of the clouds with the lighter color, then you're indicating light source is above the clouds, but that's not the case here because it's a setting sun. So the sun is low in the horizon, meaning it's the bottom of the clouds that should have this lighter color. It's also affecting the atmosphere. It's a really rich yellow transitioning into the corals, some coral highlights in the bottom of these clouds again, and so that all needs to blend and work together. I'm sort of blocking in the coral color first. We're going to make adjustments to this and push that coral color up as more of a bottom layer to these clouds. Alright, grabbing my cadmium yellow light and a little bit of white, mostly the yellow, and my flat wash brush. I'm going to make some adjustments here, trying to find the right balance of yellow versus coral and blending the two together slightly. A little more yellow. You can see I can really picture this part of the painting, and I'm very excited to be making such good progress. I'm working very quickly, trying to keep things moving and not get bogged down in any one section of the painting. Keep it active, keep it light, keep it moving. Okay, here's some titanium white, a little more of the cadmium yellow, and a touch of the crimson, a lighter coral color, very light milky color here at the top. Gonna bring that in as a highlight. And just gonna blend that coral into the yellow below it. Blending here with my flat wash brush. And I'm going to put some more highlights here at the bottom of these clouds. With that milky coral color, a little more crimson and the white into my mix. Just lightly dabbing in a few spots. A little more of my coral mix, a little more red, a little more white, touch more yellow. Grab my bright brush once again. I've cleaned it off. And we're really going to bring up the highlights now. Right here underneath these clouds, they're just glowing, radiant color. Really need this color to pop forward. I am literally just tapping the brush along the bottom edge of these clouds. It's a nice light pink coral. There's a little more orange on the right, so then it transitions into the pink. It's nice for some variation. Just blending here. Quick horizontal brushwork. Increasing the presence of the coral. We're going to go back over it with a lighter layer of yellow very soon, and that will adjust this whole painting to look more realistic. One thing at a time. A few more highlights with this lighter pink. Okay, back to my cobalt blue and the white, my clean, bright brush. Just like the clouds above, there is portions of the sky visible through these clouds. They're not a solid mass of clouds, but they are broken up a little bit in the setting sun. So we're going to recreate that, and that's going to add a nice level of realism to them. We need bits of the blue sky peering through. This is not a very, very heavy layer of clouds, so there will be no blue showing up. We need to add that in. So here I'm going to do that right now. Horizontal orientation of the bristles, just tapping left to right. The more I can break up these clouds, the better it's going to look. Making an adjustment here. This left-hand bank of clouds is a little lower than the right-hand side, and I want to show that indentation so it closer matches the photograph that I'm working from. I think this zing of blue is very important to making this look a little more realistic and read better overall. Having that big block of purple wasn't that convincing, but now that I've broken it up with little hints of the blue and some of the highlight colors, it makes the eye read it as a group of clouds rather than one clump, if you will. Definitely looking a lot better, and the more that I play with this and add other layers here, it's going to look more and more realistic and read a whole lot better. A little more cadmium yellow and some white with my flat wash brush. Gonna make a nice, soft, creamy yellow, kind of a golden yellow. And we're gonna bring this in, and I'm dabbing here with the brush. It's gonna nicely lighten up the bottom section of these clouds and of the sky. Blending over the coral there, lightly, softening it up a bit, working on the transition between the two. More intense at the bottom and lighter to the coral transition. Right along here at the top of the tree line, I have blue still down at the bottom. They almost look like mountains. They're going to be trees soon enough, or at least a silhouette of trees, I'm thinking. And don't forget the corners of your canvas. And the edges, of course. Okay, back to my Cobalt Blue white mix, my bright brush. Add a little more to the top here, make a few more adjustments with the white and the blue. Wasn't quite happy with how it was looking, but that's okay. Doesn't take very long to make a few adjustments. Okay, I have a dirty brush here. There's a little bit of purple on my brush from adjusting these clouds, and I'm going to just create a little more variation in the sky, having a few darker sections where this purple is kind of zinging through. You can see that my brush is a little bit dirty. That's okay. Alright, back to the crimson and the white with a Filbert brush, rounded edge. And it's kind of a nice pink color here, and we're going to, again, more crimson here at the center. Back to my coral mix of crimson, white, and yellow with the Filbert brush, In my other hand, I'm holding my bright brush with the lighter blue mix. I'm going to go back and forth between the two. And with this lighter coral, I'm going to put a few high clouds where I had those crimson marks at the very beginning when I blocked everything in. Some nice, very distant ones, and then I'll put a few lighter highlights at the bottom again of these higher clouds. Bringing in some lighter highlights here on this lower cloud bank with the lighter coral mix. Having a little more yellow in that mixture really makes the whole thing zing. Touch more white to my mix. And again, just dabbing the very edge of my brush in a few spots to create those highlights. Bringing that down and across. And I'm dabbing down here as well, some lower clouds here, breaking up the variation. I can take some more of the yellow and the white mix with my flat wash brush, connect across over here. After blending, I'm going to grab the smallest brush that I own, my liner brush. Here, I'm going to take that and take a bit of the cadmium yellow, mostly yellow here actually. I'm going to recapture some of the intensity of that original yellow with this thin brush. Just painting some nice light tendrils here, where the sun is really shimmering off of these clouds. Like I said, pure cadmium yellow light. A few more spots here and there, a little more yellow here at the bottom where the sun is just set behind these trees. A little more coral mix up here in the top right corner. Back to my cadmium yellow mixture, mostly yellow, a little bit of coral mixed in there. Lightly tapping the bristles. Alright, straight into the Mars Black with my bright brush. I'm going to tap directly onto the canvas here at the bottom with a pure black mix. That's just straight from the tube, Mars Black. And that's going to be the shadowed foreground trees. They're going to be silhouetted entirely, totally backlit by the light, and we're going to go for a simple straight up black. Bring in some of the yellow. But if you mix yellow and black, it's going to become a green, so it's just easier to keep it straight black. Again, I'm just tapping here. Continuing to tap here rapidly, allowing the bristles to splay and leave a lot of the marks just black, so we're not really painting detail per se, but we're allowing the bristles to form the tops of these trees, and the splattering effect of pressing the bristles directly onto the canvas creates some very nice organic looking tree shapes. I'm just following the loose outline of the blue that I've already placed on my canvas, the very first thing that I did when I started this painting. And you can see that that contrast of the black against the sky really helps elevate this entire composition, and by adding in these foreground trees, the whole piece just becomes that much more vibrant and sparkles. Now realistically, I know that photographs do tend to darken the foreground trees to a black, which is not exactly how they would look in real life, so since I'm painting from a photograph, it matches exactly. It is black. Realistically, should those be a little bit lighter? Is there more light coming through? Well, yes. But I find that when I focus my eyes on the sky, the trees, peripheral vision, they do look very, very dark. So dark, in fact, that we can get away with the black, I think. And because they're such a small part of this composition, the very, very bottom, the tiniest little bit, I think that it's okay to use pure black here. If I was painting a big tree kind of cutting across, well, then I need to think a little more critically about the colors that I'm using. But for this, the black will work just fine. You can see I'm varying the height of these. They're not a perfect horizontal band, but there's some movement within them, some distance even added by having different heights and different levels. And again, I'm just tapping. A little more cadmium yellow with the liner brush to fill in a little bit of the blue in the left-hand corner that's peeking through, and we're going to call this painting done. Hope you've enjoyed watching me paint. I've had a great time today. Follow me on Instagram, on Facebook, on Twitter at Impulsive Artistry. I'm looking forward to seeing you there, and I'll be back soon with another great painting video for you all.